everybody, it's the Ridge Outdoors, and today I'm just going to be restoring a leather sheath. This is for like an older KABAR style knife. This isn't the knife, it's a little bit small, but this is from a buddy that sent it to me that wanted it restored. So the leather on the top isn't too terribly beat up, but on the back it's a little rough, and then where the belt loop has gone through, it's tearing just a little bit, and there's absolutely no threading left on this. So I'm going to try to polish up the brass, I assume that is, and I'm going to put some Horseman's One Step cream on here to condition it, and then at the end I'll probably end up putting some ink on it. I got this from a Army surplus store for like $2, and it's bigger than my normal tub, so it's a good find. I'm not sure whether I'm going to patch this up with a piece of leather or what I'm going to do, but I'm going to start conditioning it first and we'll go from there. So I'm just going to rub this on here and I'm going to let it soak in for a little bit so it really penetrates that leather and softens it up. It still is pretty subtle, but it definitely could use a good treatment. And then after that's soaked in and I buff it out a little bit, either with a brush or some kind of like microfiber pad or something, we'll assess it again. So I've never used this stuff, so we're learning together on this one once again.
So I normally use waxes and stuff, but this is more of a cream. This says it won't change the color, which I find hard to believe. Sure, it'll darken it up a little bit, but so I'm just gonna smear it on here pretty generously. Try to get the inside quite a bit too, and just let it soak in for quite a while, a couple hours maybe.
Yeah, I'm just gonna let that soak for a little bit, and I'll bring you back and we'll see what it looks like after it's soaked for an hour or two, we'll say. So it turned out pretty good. It's really nice and soft now, and kind of rejuvenized, I guess. I'm going to try to do the stitch up now. That's the main thing this thing really needed, a good, going over with some conditioner. Now I'm sure this was made by machine, but this thing goes straight through it, so I should be able to do the saddle stitch on it. So I'll probably have to poke a hole, or a little bit bigger hole in each one with an awl, and then I'm going to do just the traditional saddle stitch. So let's get to that. So I have both threads for each side pre-cut, and just a rule of thumb, you want 4 times the length. I normally do 5 to 6 times just so I have a little extra. And I got a kit on Amazon that came with, and it was $10 or $11. I'll have the link in the description. Came with 8 rolls of thread, all different colors. This one just matched the best. Comes with a cheap awl. You can actually thread the thread through this and assist yourself with that. I'll probably never use that. Comes with a bunch of needles, a couple curved ones, sail needle, which I'll probably put that in my bug out bag. This one's actually a carpet needle I'm using, and then the Glover needle. This one's just a little bit smaller, so I'm going to use that since these are pretty small holes. And I think that's all it came with. Oh, actually that came with like a little kind of thimble thing, and actually it came in handy. Like if you're trying to push it through some thick leather, you can just put it on your thumb or one of your fingers, and it really grabs the needle and pushes it through. So I'll have that link in the description. While I was waiting for this to dry, I made a sheath for a coworker, a scout carry for this is a Benchmade Bushcrafters 162 knife, and it's really nice. I might have to pick one up myself. So since it only came with one of these needles, I'm just going to do kind of the lazy way to do the saddle stitch. I'm going to go all the way through every other one and then come back through. Okay, I'm going to start on the back. Actually, there's a little bit of thread left on the back. Hopefully this doesn't give me too many problems. See, and as you can see, I'm doing every other stitch. I'm gonna go all the way down, and then when I come back, hopefully if it's the right, either even or odd, I'm not sure on this, I'll be able to start doing the double stitch or saddle stitch and come back through and we'll be good to go. So I've done all the way down the one way, and it did work out where I'm just able to naturally come back. If it's not gonna line up and you're gonna be going through the same holes, making the same pattern, I would just go through one hole, come back another hole, so you can kind of readjust yourself and then start coming through and filling in all those gaps. So I'm going to come through doing that. While you're doing this, just make sure you avoid piercing the thread that's already in there with the needle. Most leather work needles are rounded off. This one's a little bit sharper than I like, but if you do notice that you pierced it, you can back it out, and then you can kind of feel your way around, or you can sometimes see the thread that you pierce and just kind of work your way around it. If you pierce it really bad and what's done is done at that point, either you can start all over again. So like if you're just starting out, like right here, I would just start over. Or if you're halfway through coming back around, you can just cut it off even and then start back a couple stitches, probably 2 or 3, and then just do like you normally would, and then just cut them off as flush as you can, and those will be locked in there. So I'm gonna finish this up. So that's the saddle stitch on this one side. So I went all the way back up through the original hole and out, and then I went back through one stitch. I'm pretty much just gonna tie these in a knot, cut them as close as I can, and then tamp them down a little bit and call it good. I was going to go a couple more stitches, however, just on that last pull, my needle broke the thread through, so that's just fate telling me that that I'm good to go. Actually, no, I'm just going to cut these. That'll be okay. Just tamp those down to kind of set them a little bit, and I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And here it is with all the stitching back in place. I was able to do 2 or 3 passes, or back passes I guess, once I had reached the end and went back. So now one of the issues, or a couple issues, there's a little slit mark right here where at some point somebody sent the knife through it. I think I'm going to leave that alone, but at the belt loop it's also tearing. So I think I'm just going to do like maybe a little square of thread there, just so we can stop that from getting any worse at least. So I have this 2-pronged punch. I think I'm gonna do 3 hits with it, so it'll be kind of like a little box stitch for the most part. And make sure there's enough material for it to grab onto. I think that'll be okay. And if not, then I'm gonna have to patch this with something. But I think this is gonna work pretty good. I could probably glue this too, but I really don't want to have a bunch of glue kind of marring the finish.
Pretty close, but I'm gonna do one more on the side just to.
So let's see. Actually, I can just use the same needle and thread, so that's pretty nice.
Same saddle stitch. This one might be a little different, a little improvised. Go through this one again. Make sure we get that tucked in there real nice. Center down there. I'm gonna do a cross pattern kinda. I think it'll be a little stronger. I think that's gonna work pretty good actually. Pretty close to the edge there, so I'm not gonna cinch it up too terribly tight.
So that's like an improvised cross saddle stitch diagonal. I don't know, but I think that'll hold it. If anybody on here has any suggestions what they would have done, definitely let me know. Because this is my first kind of restoration type deal. I'm sure it won't be my last. I have a couple of sheaths that could, old sheaths that could use redone. Okay, so I wouldn't call that the prettiest thing. It was better looking before I did that, but I think that'll work. So now, before I get ahead of myself, I'm just gonna re-burnish some of these edges, make it nice and smooth for them. Hopefully that'll work fine after putting the that cream on there. I was really not doing too much, so I might leave good enough alone. It's helping a little bit, but I really like getting like a nice glassy finish. And once again, this kind of, I think on newer leather, maybe it just really kind of melds and welds the leather together. Here it's just kind of mushing it a little bit, but it's still looking better than it was, at least. There's some, like, you wouldn't even need this if you just had a wooden dowel. You could just dampen leather and use that, or even put it in a Dremel if you wanted a motorized one. They sell motorized ones, but they're expensive as crap for when I could just put it in a drill press and run it along it. But I guess if you're in a professional setting, it makes sense. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and stop there. That's cracked a little bit, but I don't think that's gonna affect too much. That's pretty much done. I'm gonna try to polish up the brass and maybe the rivets. I think those maybe would be left alone. But all right. So as instructed by the internet, I made a concoction of, it's a equal parts white vinegar, salt, and flour, and that's supposed to clean brass. So I'm gonna give that a try. This is 1 tablespoon of each, so I'll have plenty of that. I'm gonna just real carefully, try not to get it on the leather or anything. Smear that on there and let it sit for a little bit. And we're pretty close to being done with this. I cleaned some of them up, but it's kind of cool. You can see all the old stitching that kind of came out just in little chunks, and then a couple that were still like one thread of the whole thing. So pretty neat. So it's been about 5 minutes. I did get impatient, like right when I put it on there, and I scrubbed it a little bit and then reapplied it. But I think it's going to turn out better actually than I thought it was going to. And then I put a little dot on some of these buttons too, so which doesn't seem to be doing too terribly much on those. Yeah, that cleaned up a real slight bit. So that's cleaning up really nice. I might not be able to get some of these deeper ones possibly, but it's vintage, so it adds character. That's what the youths are calling it nowadays. There's all kinds of crap I don't know with like sayings nowadays. I just learned that goat means like greatest of all time or something. Like that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But if you watch that video and use that term, you're cool. You're one of the cool ones, I guess. And if you have anything better that you would have done with this sheath, definitely let me know in the comments. I know you will, because people love correcting people on YouTube. My channel's been pretty, or all my comments have been pretty nice so far. So that's pretty cool. Back in the day when I had another channel, there were a couple videos that had quite a few views, and some of the comments were pretty annoying. One was just like, "Your eyes are really close together, you should kill yourself." And I'm like, oh geez, that's pretty bold to say to somebody you don't know. I think I'm gonna leave it like that. I'm gonna cut these a little shorter. That didn't come undone, did it? Yeah, I'm gonna cut these off. Get some of this salt and flour mixture off. So that's what it looks like so far. I'm gonna do a coat of mink oil on it just to protect it a little bit longer, and then I'll tell my buddy to just keep some on hand. So I use this on that sheath. This is, I got from a military surplus store. I might have said that already, but it looks pretty chunky. It still works, but for something like this, I'm gonna use my good stuff. It's a little bit clearer and I definitely don't want to blemish something like this. I don't know whether putting the mink oil on the brass part's going to affect it, or if that'll help protect it. I'm not sure. But I'll do a couple coats of this, and I've been kind of putting it over my stove. I probably won't do it with this since it's older leather, but over my stove just to heat it up a little bit. Your hands do a pretty good job, but I feel like the extra heat just helps it soak into like new fresh leather. But yeah, definitely I'm not gonna do anything crazy with this, with it being my first one and not mine. If it was mine, it might be different, but so get that nice and saturated in there. And this is a project in the books. Get a little buffing towel. It's kind of surprising. One of these, an older sheath is only, the 2 layers. Normally, you'd have the thread saver on there. I mean, I know that's what the brass is for, but I mean, this pretty much didn't have a stitch left to speak of, so. But here is the finished product. I think he wanted it pretty much cleaned up and usable, so it's definitely hopefully will last him another 50 years. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Definitely comment anything I could have done better or products you recommend. This is the first time I've ever used this like the Horseman's saddle leather conditioner. I always use mink oil in most of my stuff, but if you would have used a different product, or if you, for something like this, would have used something other than mink oil to protect it, just mink oil is always what I have. And I read the neat's foot oil can damage the threads or slowly eat away the threads, so I didn't want to do that, especially with this. I definitely will try it out at some point, but definitely subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video.